Good morning, good morning, good morning to everybody out there today. It is Tuesday, I think. Yes, Tuesday. I can tell because I got a bit of a haircut. I'm not going to show you because I want you to enjoy your coffee this morning. I don't want to shock you with what continues to be a wild experiment with my hair, thus the hat. But maybe later, maybe later. Maybe if there's some comments, I'll show you what happened. Seriously, Becca's doing a great job cutting my hair, so no disrespect to her whatsoever. But yeah, so Tuesday morning, the day after we have launched our new Colombia via Esperanza. So happy that the coffee's out. We highlighted it last week. We hadn't released it yet, so this is great that we get to come back and talk a little bit more about it. I know Ben yesterday used it in his discussion about water quality. I'm going to do a quick dive into the coffee. We're going to look like we usually do with the coffee report. We'll take a look at where it comes from in Colombia, and then we'll brew some on the Chemex. So that's the plan for this morning. So if you have a Chemex and you want to brew along, please do. I'm using 40 grams of coffee. I'll be using 700 grams of water. If you have your Chemex, your filters, and your scale, and some Colombia, that's awesome. Although it just released yesterday, so maybe you don't have the Colombia yet. We'll give you an opportunity to go ahead and grab some this morning, by all means. Now, the first thing I want to say about this coffee is that it is a Voyager coffee. We'll pop over here to the monitor real quick so you can see. The Colombia via Esperanza Gesha is a Voyager coffee. See the bag there, right? Not the standard bag that you're used to looking at when you see our coffee, right? That's because it is a Voyager coffee. And with that, that's our line of smaller, what we might consider like already, all of our coffees are specialty coffees, obviously, as far as grade and quality, but kind of boutique-y. This is a very boutique coffee, if you want to use that word. Sounds a little funny, but if we're talking about a coffee that is that way, absolutely, this coffee is. So, again, later this morning, we're going to go ahead and use our Chemex brewer. See, I have my filter here over top of my Chemex, on top of my scale, with the coffee. I did pre-grind the coffee, so just letting you know that. So we're going to try and move through this next phase relatively quickly so we can get to the brewing portion of this morning's enterprise. So let's talk a little bit about this coffee, shall we? So if you go to our website, you'll be able to open it up, and it's located. We have a banner splash right on the front page, so you'll see that there. We'll provide a link here into the coffees. I see it just came up here. Brendan tells me he got his first haircut since February. Wait. Is that true? Wow. Oh, okay. We want before and after pictures, Brendan. Let's see the haircut that hadn't been cut since February, yesterday, and then let's see it today, maybe on your next broadcast. So the coffee is a Voyager line. You'll see that right away when you look at it, when you go to the page. And as always, I want to ask you to pop over and check out this here lovely coffee report. We've changed the format a little bit, just a different look than some of the other coffee reports you're used to seeing. And what we call out, besides the cup qualities, is the location element of this coffee, and that's what I wanted to make sure we all got a quick look at. So we'll take a look at the map here. You see Colombia there, right at the top of South America. Here we have North America, Central America, South America. You all know that. Let's zoom in here. Now, why do I have the Tolima area, and in particular, Jardín and Banderas, right? I'm saying Banderas here, Jardín up here. So this is where, down below here where the heart is, that is where the other Colombian coffee that we've been enjoying for a couple months now has come from, all right? That's where Las Brisas comes from. And you'll see quite a difference here if you go up here to where the star is to the vicinity of Jardin, right? Look at that, quite a ways further north. If you back up and just look at that distance, right? I mean, it's the distance between Panama City and San Jose almost in Central America, right? So a different growing region, and for sure, different growing region. I think our flavor profile, and this is mentioned in the coffee report, tends to be down in this area down here. But this is considered maybe kind of a more northern Colombian coffee for us to be trying out. But if you go back, when you read the report, you will see that it does come from what is considered an experimental farm. So they really are focusing on working with very small lot coffees, which comes us back to why this is in a brown bag rather than our other packaging, because it is a Voyager line, and it really, we do not have very much of this coffee. So why are we talking about it so much? Because it's very, very special, and we really want folks who are fans of our coffees to try this coffee out. Because as the Voyagers, they come and they're relatively small lot coffees. So if you want to try it, don't sit on it. Go ahead and grab the coffee now. And of course, remember to use our discount code. So the Colombia via Esperanza. Let's pop back over here to our cell cam. We'll take away the coffee here. All right, so we are using our Chemex, right? So here is our filter. And if you've not used this before, no worries. It is really pretty user-friendly. So the filter, you look at it, it's this like lab blotter paper. And look at it down there, just fold it up to a square. This is your origami practice for today. So when you have it folded up into a square, you have these leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? See that? We want to take it and you always pull away one, and it can go from either direction. You can go from this side, you can go from this side. You just pull away one leaf, and you put it into the coffee filter with the 3, 1, 2, 3 by the spout. See the spout there? And that helps the filter retain shape over the top of the spout when we wet it, which is what we're going to do right now, right? We're going to go ahead and wet our coffee filter really well. That does several things when we are working with our coffee. That allows us to, let's see this, I'll get you out of the way. That allows us to pre-soak the filter, right? Which means that it washes out any paper qualities that might be in that filter. And then it also, as you can see here, the area where it's wet, that's the area where we're going to be brewing. So it washes out any of the paper qualities in that part of the filter. It also bonds the filter to the side, right? As it gets wet, it presses the paper out, and so it's touching along the glass here, right? But the one area, of course, where we don't want it to touch is in this funnel here, so that you can see that right down in there, right? Can I get that orientation right there? See that? You can look all the way down in. We need air to be able to slide through into the brew chamber there, so that the coffee will draw down. If that were to clog, if we had only the single side of the paper up against that, up against the spout, then the paper would fold down in when it got wet, possibly block that off, and then your coffee, the slurry, would just sit up in the top of the Chemex. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on so we can look at the. Yeah, okay, good. And I'm going to have my coffee. All right. So again, I have 40 grams. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a shake there. Okay. So some of you probably remember now what it is we do when we do a pour over. We start first by wetting the paper filter, if we're using a paper filter. so we can wash out any of the paper qualities, so we can bond it more tightly to the exterior, and then we also, with the Chemex at least, and then also it pre-warms the vessel a little bit. Now the next thing that we do is we're going to add just the amount of water, tearing that, as we need for our coffee. To double. Okay. And I start my timer. All right. So, as always, trying to both brew and manage the broadcast can be a little hard to do. I'll spin that around so you can see it upright. Okay. And as we get closer to 30 seconds, you can see what's happening with the coffee is that we have these bubbles that have appeared. That is an exchange of the CO2 with water, and it's off-gassing a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and pour up a little bit. And I'm going to just, oh my gosh, I can already smell those aromatics. I'm going to go about to halfway where I want to be, about 300. Okay, and then just a slight little wiggle there. And you can see that draws any grounds that might have laid up against the paper, draws them back down into that slurry. Right. And I'm going to pour about the rate that it's pouring through till I get to my 700. See, nice slow pour rate. I'm trying to match what I hear, the rate of coffee that's pouring down, so that I'm replacing the water into the coffee at the same rate as it's pouring out. Right, very slow. And another reason that I paused there is it gave me a line. When I paused, after the first 200, it allowed me to establish a little line inside of the filter that I'm not going to go above. So I don't want to just keep pouring until it fills all the way up to the top. I'm trying to keep this very low and a very steady rate of extraction. Right? And so since I had stopped there, you can see when you pour up to that initial amount and stop, you're able to then see where that the coffee kind of stains the filter, and it gives you a line to stay under. Because you realize you're looking at my forearm. That's not really exciting, is it? Let's take that off. All right. And then we're just going to pour out the rest here. Okay, there we are. Okay. So you can't quite tell, but the edge of the Chemex is a good, finger below. The edge of the glass of the Chemex is a good finger below where the pour line was. So the goal of that was really to keep the slurry relatively low and slow down my pour rate, right, for the coffee. So I'm brewing this at a little lower temperature and for a little bit longer time. So we're getting up to close to the 4 minutes, maybe a little bit long, I think, 4-minute pour time for this. So probably what I would change if I was going to change my technique here, and we'll wait and taste it, of course, is I probably would change the grind setting, right? So to do that, I would simply make the coffee make the coffee a little bit more coarse to allow the pass through a little bit better. But because I was doing this technique where I was keeping it low and slow, um, I didn't want to pass through too quickly. So it's always a little bit tricky. Looks like we're at about a 4-minute and 30-second time. Right? All right. So one last thing I always do with my Chemex is a little spin. Why do I do that? Well, I'll tell you. The reason I do that is because the coffee has been going in, and it's been in. There's part of the coffee's been in there since 10 and 15 seconds at the beginning of the brew. The rest is coming in, and it's not. It's all the only agitation of blending all that coffee together is just the pour rate, right? So. So the coffee, as it sits there for those 4.5 minutes, is going to be differently distributed, right? So just giving it a little nice swirl at the end there, and then putting it down on top of your nice cork Chemex. I don't know what you call that, coaster. At the very end, ensures that you are not going to ding or break your Chemex. I just said it. I shouldn't have said it. I say Brendan just talked about floating his water line above the glass, just living dangerously, right? Sometimes when you do that, anyway. Another thing about living dangerously is using the Chemex in general. And I just said it, and I shouldn't have said it. I mentioned just on the side of this process the possibility that I could break my Chemex. I've had this Chemex for 15 years. I shouldn't have said that. I never talk about breaking Chemexes, and I've just said it like 3 times in this broadcast. I love this one with the glass handle. All right, so give it a little bit of time now. I don't pour right away, even though I spent the time to brew this coffee. And I probably want my morning coffee right away. I do like to let it cool a little bit. That's another thing that the swirl does, right? It just helps it to cool down a little bit before we drink it, because we do want our coffee to be just, we don't want it to be piping hot, really, at home. Maybe if we're commuting and we're in a car, maybe we want our coffee to be a little more hot, right? People have different, feels for that as far as the temperature of their coffee. But I'm always going to say we should let our coffee cool a little bit before we drink it so we can taste it. If you remember, we did the cupping last week in the slurping process. If you've ever done that with us, that slurping, part of that is spreading the coffee across the palate, but it's also cooling the coffee, right? So same kind of idea. In order to really taste the coffee, we want to cool slightly. That's also why I use this big chunky mug, right? One of our diner mugs. You can get these online too. Because I want some of that heat of the coffee to go into the mug. I don't always pre-warm my mugs for that very reason. Because depending on when I made the coffee, with a freshly brewed coffee like this, I'm not going to pre-warm my mug because I want some of that temperature of that coffee to dissipate, to go into the mug, so that when I drink it, it's a little bit cooler, right? If it's been a while, if the coffee's been in an air pot and maybe has lost some temperature, maybe I'll preheat my mug. But yes, I didn't break my Chemex just now, Brendan. I mentioned it, and now I've mentioned it a 4th time, so I've doomed it. But that's okay, because we have a link for buying a Chemex if you need one. If I need to get a new one, I can get one. I shouldn't have said anything. Great. So today is about the Chemex, but it's really about the coffee. It's our new Via Esperanza Colombian coffee from Jardin, and it is a Gesha variety, or Gesha variety, as really probably the way that it's pronounced. If you've looked into the history a little bit, we talked about it last week. That variety, we believe, traces back to Africa, to Gesha mountain, right? So it is, an old varietal coming directly from, the homeland of coffee, Ethiopia. So truly exceptional coffee. I'm excited. So what are the cup characteristics? Well, if we go to our website here and we look at the cup characteristics, they talk about there being a qualities of jasmine. For certain, there is that floral quality to it, which is that jasmine floral quality. Wild strawberries, I am tasting a little bit more of maybe like a papaya or mango. But yeah, definitely a tropical fruit, that soft kind of, would not oh, what do we consider that? The base qualities of fruit as opposed to the citric fruits. But there is a citrus quality to it. And the thing that I experienced it as, when we think about hops, not malted hops, but fresh hops, it's that citric quality of hops, that kind of, it's not bitter, tangy maybe might be the quality. And it's always lovely to think about our coffee's flavor profiles as a relationship between different aspects, right? We talk about a balanced coffee. We want there to be a body, which is that quality of coffee that like kind of coats the palate and gives weight in a sense to the coffee. And then acidity, the brightness of the coffee. And we know when we talk about acidity in coffee, we're not talking about pH balance. We're talking about, just like when we say weight of a coffee, not the literal weight, also not the literal acidity, but a sensorial experience, an experience on the palate of brightness. And that balance is something that we're always searching for. We want to find it obviously when Bob and the coffee team are looking at coffees and judging them as samples come in or as they go down and visit partners in origin. That's where it starts, right? Is with tasting the coffee at its source, and then the roasting, of course, comes in. And how do we capture and create a roasted coffee which preserves what is a genetic part of that variety of coffee? The balance, how do we highlight it and play with it as we roast the coffee? And then, of course, the brewing technique is what follows up at the end, is how do we brew the coffee to preserve those things that have been brought to us from the farm. That is why we like to talk to our farmer producers and the folks in origin that help us find this coffee, because we kind of think of our job as to honor what they've done in the roasting process, and then here when we do education and outreach and helping our customers continue to honor that coffee in the preparation by really studying how we can prepare a coffee that continues to hold the balance of flavor. And did okay today. Oh, there's a precious coffee. I really hope you try it. Make sure to use our code WatchAndLearn10. Now, I was speaking about what we've been doing with Bob on Wednesdays, reaching down into origin. So we are going to do that tomorrow as well. So we're going to have a call, a Zoom call with one of our friends in Colombia. Now, these are the fine people who help us source the other coffee that we talked about today and which we've highlighted in the past, our other Colombian coffee. But we will be traveling to Colombia tomorrow at 9 o'clock with Bob to discuss our fantastic Colombian offerings, maybe what the future might hold for us out of Colombia as we move into the next season. And then also, we've been asking about how COVID-19 has been affecting both the farmers, the pickers, and their entire supply chain, and how that is affecting them. We think it's important to know that and to discuss that with them so that we can be aware of what's occurring in the global supply chain as we move through this pandemic. So pleasure spending time with you today. I hope you try the coffee out. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, you can always check in here through our comments. I'll just look back through here. Yep, I think I answered most of everything here. Got to it. Thanks, folks, for watching today. Do check in tomorrow at 9 o'clock to visit with Bob. And then also on Thursday at 9 o'clock, noon Eastern. We're going to be having a call with Krista, our retail and operations lead for retail in Olympia, and Nikisha, who is the retail operations lead in Atlanta, discussing how the retail stores are doing right now and focusing on a new product that we have in the stores, which is our grab and go drinks, right? So there are large portions of lattes, mochas, vanilla lattes, all those kind of iced drinks that you might want to get, but you can grab it in a 64-ounce container, right? So we're going to highlight those and talk about how things are looking on the retail front. Again, as we move through pandemic, as things change, some things stay the same. So please check in, give a little love to the retail stores, of course, and enjoy your day as we continue to learn how to turn our homes into cafes.